Thank you for joining Sports Development Series. We yours truly, Boma Ekiyor.
And we're in Sports Dev Series. My main man Mike is back. Mike, West Coast, what's going on?
Look, one thing I have to say is I can't stand this cold in North America, man. So last week I was on the East Coast and it was kind of warm. Then I was went through Minnesota on my way back to California, and let me tell you, I felt like ice was getting into my body. And
what was the temperature?
It doesn't feel right that the World Cup is happening when the rest of the world is freezing. But hey, here we are.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I know it's crazy. Imagine if you're in Qatar right now, you'd be in a 40-degree weather.
That's what they're saying. It's hot out there, but it's air-conditioned stadiums, so
yeah,
things are all
crazy,
right,
man. No, it's thanks for coming on again. In Minnesota's cold, but I think today in Toronto was cold. For the most part, I think it was like 28 most of the day. And funny enough, it's warmed up a little at night, which is where it typically gets colder at night. But it snowed yesterday, so maybe that's why.
Well, we're in California. We don't understand the concept of snow, so
yeah,
you guys can keep that.
I feel you, man. I feel you. But yo, how about that? I didn't see that game today. I saw your messages you were sending me about that game.
I think the less we talk about that game, the better. I think we should focus on teams that are about to do something. It's very obvious that the Super Eagles were just kind of there just to show up, but not really. There was no motivation. There was no. It was Portugal's send-off party, and we were very, very, very welcoming guests, so to speak.
You know what I mean?
Highlight of the match. There's something I would speak of just to talk about that Nigeria versus Portugal game.
Yeah,
we were down 2-0, deservedly so, after the first half, and then we won a penalty in the second half. And immediately, Emmanuel Dennis, who had just been on the field for no more than 5 minutes, grabbed the ball. Very clearly, Paul Onuachu wanted to take the penalty, and Emmanuel Dennis refused to let him take the penalty. In fact, they kept looking to the bench, and Paul was pointing at the bench like, it seemed like Dennis wasn't supposed to take it. Even Captain William Truce Ekong came to speak to him about something similarly, and he refused to budge. And the penalty he took was a very weak penalty. And of course, it got saved. And from that point on, you could just see the morale of the entire team just drop completely. In fact, Portugal scored 2 goals within 5 minutes after that. Where you could just tell that the morale of the team dropped. So there's an issue there, and that one needs to be resolved. And I think if you look at a lot of fans commenting, they're saying that probably Dennis shouldn't be invited again. I don't know if he needs to go that far, but something needs to be done because it's been very clear. General Roy had some problems with him, discipline issues-wise. The discipline issues when his club in Belgium, in Germany, somewhat in Watford, a little bit, but not really came to the fore. And something doesn't seem right about that kid and his mentality, but there's just something to watch moving forward.
Yeah. If he's a disruptor, and he's really not in form. Like if you watch him, he hasn't really been lighting it up. He plays for Nottingham Forest. It's not. I saw a couple of games, not doing anything special. Clearly, if he was behaving like that in this game, I didn't see the game, but I don't think he was doing anything special either.
Nothing at all. But nobody does. Maybe the only person that can maybe say lift his head up high in this match is Samuel Chukwueze. He came in the second half, and his introduction actually changed the fortunes of the Super Eagles. He was the only one that seemed to be lighting them and giving a spark. It was very lackluster all around. There's no one there. Maybe Saeed Samuel in his debut, but even in all reality, you can't really pinpoint anything. He won the penalty, so that's one thing you can say he did. Moses Simon was a minus. Aribo just didn't really perform. Iwobi was running around, but nothing came off. Terry Murphy barely got any touches in the 45 minutes or so that he was on the field. It didn't look. We looked like a team that's not going to the World Cup and didn't have any interest in playing that match, quite frankly. And so the score reflected it. the performance did too.
And you know what that means for me? Some people might be like, oh, it's a friendly, doesn't mean anything. Nah, for me, it means it's a pride thing. Like guys who compete at a high level and have pride about what they do. It doesn't matter what platform you put them on. They're gonna show up. They will show up, and it speaks to Pacero. He might say, "Oh, it was a friendly. We just wanted to go out there and see." No, no, no. You step on that field.
Well, that too. But here's a fact:
No.
Nigeria has played 5 friendly matches in 2022, and they've lost all of them.
That's my point, though.
Yeah,
right?
So
It's saying something. It's a pride thing. Like this guy, honestly, why did we hire him?
Remains to be seen, bro.
Well, that's what I'm saying,
bro. My suggestion now is we move on away from the Super Eagles right now. There's really not much to talk about in terms of them. We want to focus on teams that mean business, and right now the Super Eagles don't mean business. If you ask me.
All right, let's hop in. Group A.
You're talking about the Mundial. Thank you. Finally. So in Group A, what do we have? Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, Netherlands. The biggest news of Group A is Sadio Mane has been ruled out of the World Cup after having surgery on his knee. That is the big blow, not just for Senegal, but for all of Africa and really fans of the round leather game. In fact, I saw that news today, and it just was very sad. I mean, we already knew it was probably a race against time for him to play, considering how he got injured. But that one actually pains me because I actually thought Senegal was going to come out of this group, and quite frankly, I don't see that happening now because Senegal is a good team. They're solid. They have good players, but having that talisman, that difference maker when things aren't going right, somebody who can just pop up out of nowhere and decide a match, I think that's going to make a difference because I just don't see how Ecuador looks like the team that's going to take the spot in this group. And obviously Netherlands is a standout of the group. I even thought Senegal was going to finish in first place in this group. But without Sadio Mane, I think that's a big deal, and I just don't see that.
It is a big blow, though. But I mean, I think because here's the thing I know about that Senegalese team. Okay, yes, Sadio makes a huge difference because of his you have to account for him up front, right? You can't just play them without accounting for him, and because you account for him, the other guys get a chance to shine. But here's the thing. They're organized. Senegal is very organized. They play very good football. They're solid at the back and compact. They play with pride.
Like they do, but they don't have goals in them. That's the thing.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of goals. That's where Mane comes in.
Goals when you miss a player who is the difference maker, and when you don't have a lot of goals. Yeah. That's so. Let's say they're playing against Ecuador. Maybe a game they would have ordinarily won that match 1-0. Now it's going to be 0-0 or 1-1. Ecuador themselves. Ecuador is a pretty solid team. Estupinian. They have Ener Valencia, who although he's playing in the Middle East now.
Yeah, he's not the same guy though. He's not the same guy.
But he's captain of the team. He's still capable. Qatar. The one thing I would say is they're relatively unknown. The two of the star players play in the top league, the top teams in the Qatari league, and they camped together for about 6 months or so earlier in the year. The friendlies haven't really been inspiring, but one thing we can't say is, they will have home field advantage pushing them through, and also a little bit of familiarity with each other having camped for that long. But one wonders if having camped that long and been taken away from competitive domestic games, if that's going to have a rub-on effect. There is precedent to this. In 2002, South Korea did the same thing, where they camped their players for an extended period. I think it was 5 months at that time prior to the World Cup. And they made it all the way to the semifinals, although in rather dubious circumstances, with some refereeing decisions back in that World Cup. Yeah. But it remains to be seen. But I don't see them as really much of a threat. They do play some very neat one-touch football on the ground. But I fear the draw is not kind to them to give them two physical teams like Ecuador and Senegal against them. And obviously Netherlands, I think it's going to be Netherlands and Ecuador in this group now. Pretty much. Those are two teams I pick out of the group because I really was thinking Senegal could make a run to this quarterfinals, but not having Sadio Mane, the psychological blow of that, and just the actual on-field play. Some of the Senegalese players haven't been informed recently either. Koulibaly's also injured or coming back. The goalkeeper Mendy has not been playing in Chelsea, so they have a what's the other guy's name that plays in the league on? They do have another a Gomez, I believe is his name, that plays in Ligue 1. So they have a capable other goalkeeper, but the team that we saw in African Cup of Nations and the World Cup is not the same team. They have 6 new players coming into the squad, including both their fullbacks. One of them hasn't had a club. Another one hasn't really played, is injured. So we'll see.
We'll see. The thing about these teams is, it depends on which, like you said, it depends on which Senegal comes through. But this team has shown a lot of grit and organization as a team, as a unit. Against especially those games against Egypt in AFCON finals and then the qualifiers. So yes, Mane was there, and of course Egyptians had to account for him. But I think they could get past Ecuador. But we'll see.
What do you have coming out of the group? I have Netherlands and Ecuador, and you have.
I have Senegal and Netherlands.
So Senegal in first and Netherlands in second.
No. I don't think they come first. I think they could squeeze by as a second team. Because here's the thing: this could be a funny group, man. Like Senegal and Ecuador could play a 1-1 or 0-0 0-0 draw, right? Then they know they have to have a must-win against Qatar, and then they play a Dutch team who's good. But the Dutch team might not be ready for the pace of the Senegal. So it's an interesting game. And Senegal plays Holland first.
Yes. So here's the thing about the Dutch team. The Dutch team is very organized in the back. They have solid defenders. They also have a very solid creative midfield. The Dutch problem is they don't have a striker. The best striker is Memphis Depay. Memphis Depay has not been playing of late.
He's not the same guy.
He's been injured. Yeah. So that's their issue, and this is why I actually thought Senegal will pick this group. And I think I don't remember the gentleman's name, but Netherlands is taking an uncapped player. I think he's 19 years old to the World Cup. So this is an experimental Netherlands side, not like the most solidified sides we've seen in the past and settled. But they again. And also, even though goalkeepers are not the regular goalkeepers, Jasper Cillessen that we know about, he's 33 years old, didn't make the squad. So there's quite a bit of upheaval going on in the Dutch. It's not the free-flowing Dutch teams that we know, but they do have a solid spine in the center.
Yeah, Van Dijk, those guys, It's going to be a challenge, and those guys are going to be tested. I think Senegal has, it has the tools. Idrissa Gueye is going to show up, man. And the thing is, Koulibaly, they have some experience. They're not going to be intimidated by the Dutch team, much less Ecuador. That's the last thing that's going to happen. And so it's going to be interesting. I'm picking them and the Dutch to go through.
Pride there. So I look at England and Wales coming out of the group. Maybe in Iran in third, and the United States picking up the rare in this group here.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think, how do you think the United States is going to do though? They've kind of been.
I think their inexperience is what's going to undo them. They have some quality players. Obviously, everyone knows Christian Pulisic. The problem with the U.S. is that the main guys, Pulisic is not really getting a lot of playing time.
Yeah.
Which it's funny enough. That might even be to the advantage of some of these guys because at least he hasn't been. His body is still fresh for this World Cup. And he's been playing a bit part role with Chelsea. Not even really started. I think he only started like a couple of matches all through the season. But who knows, man? England, the array of stars they have should pretty much see them through in this group. But then Iran.
Yeah, I think England goes through 100%.
Iran is the big unknown. The Welsh team, when they play for the national team, they play above the sum of their parts. They pretty much play better than the individuals that they have there, and then they rely on Gareth Bale quite a bit. But they have tournament experience, and I think in a competition like this, experience is going to count. So that's the main reason why I look at the United States and I just look at them as this is not their time. This team will mature for the 2026 World Cup. So getting this experience is probably a big deal for them. They've been playing continental tournaments. They are the CONCACAF defending champs, so there is something to say for that. But I just don't see their inexperience is going to count against them in this particular group.
You think they beat Wales?
I think that's the deciding match, and I think that's where I think Wales will come out against the United States. That's the reason why I edge Wales over the U.S. I just feel like Wales will edge it over the U.S., and now they have to battle with Iran, and the Iranians are stubborn, and also the Iranians, when they play the U.S., are going to play like it's the game of their lives. So it's just not stacking up right for the United States.
You're right. Those games, they're actually games I'm going to watch. They're games that you don't want to miss. I'll never forget 2006 World Cup, and I was watching Poland play Germany. That may be one of the most physical games I've ever seen. These guys did not like each other. It was crazy. I'm talking about slide tag. There was so many yellow cards in that game. It was ridiculous. So I see that the Iranians, they're going to be more motivated in that game, I think, than the Americans. Because, the Americans just go out there and play and try to win the game and be professional. The Iranians, for them, it's a little personal.
Yeah, the personal, plus they're playing in close to home.
So
they're gonna have a little more crowd support there. I think the fans will definitely be going for them. In the backdrop of all the stuff going on in their country, basically, there's gonna be a lot of motivation for them. So I see England and Wales coming out of this group. England on top, Wales number 2.
All right, let's move on. So we are going to go to Group C, and we have Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. That should be interesting.
By the way, you never told me what you want from Group B. Who do you think?
Group B. England for sure. I'll go England and good old US of A.
Okay.
I'll pick the US over Wales. I think Wales has it. I think Wales has it. I think Gareth Bale is not the same guy. I think they have some other young players. There's some good players that play in EPL that are Welsh. But I've watched the United States as a team in qualifying. And maybe that's why, because I know a little bit more about the US team. They have some young guys who are kind of hungry. McKenna, a couple of other guys, pace. They play with some intensity, especially if they want to show up. So I think they could get by.
In Group C, Argentina, obviously, the class of it. In fact, to me, this is probably one of the easier groups in terms of clear cut who you should see coming out on top. I think Argentina is obviously the class of the group. Saudi Arabia, apart from their initial World Cup in 1994, have always just made up the numbers for the most part, and I pretty much see the same thing again. And I have to admit, I don't know as much about the Saudi team because, again, a lot of their guys play at home, which I guess there's no need for them to leave when they get lucrative contracts from the Saudi league. Yeah. But it ultimately doesn't make them better in the national stage. It does give them the advantage of having played together. And oftentimes you see these Saudi teams, they play neat, slick, one-touch football also, but just don't have that cutting edge and physicality that you really need. And sometimes, again, I haven't seen them much. I've seen 1 or 2 friendlies. So I'm basing this off previous iterations of the Saudi Arabian team. But I've seen Argentina, and in fact, I'm just going to tell you right now, I think Argentina is one of the favorites to win this World Cup in my book. So Lionel Messi's swan song, this is going to be definitely his last World Cup. It pretty much now is left up to Mexico and Poland. And obviously, when you think Poland, you immediately think Robert Lewandowski. But Poland, they have a pretty solid spine. Also, they have a few good players plying their trade. Serie A, the goalkeeper, Szczesny still there. The midfielder that plays for Napoli, So they have some good guys here. Mexico has had a very rough run of form. And not just this year. It's just been in the last couple of years. They just haven't looked like themselves. They always make it to the next round. But honestly, I think I see Poland coming out of this group along with Argentina. I see Argentina topping it and Poland being the next best team in this group. So Argentina and Poland for me.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Argentina and Poland. I think the Poles, they have some organization behind them. They have that savage called Lewandowski up front. I just feel, and they play together. The team, this team has played together for a while. It's been a unit because Lewandowski's been there, and then you have kind of like a supporting cast that plays with them. So I think they'll go through. I think they're organized. They play well. They have a front man that could put the ball behind the net. Poland could play Mexico and have 3 set plays and be up 3-0 by halftime. That's how I see that team. Just because they have someone that is good in the air, they're good on set plays. It'd be interesting. I think Argentina and Poland. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, so Zelensky is on the team that plays for Napoli. He's in form of his life right now. So Zelensky, form of his life. Obviously, you talked about Lewandowski. Szczesny is also the goalkeeper. We also have another striker that I want you to look at is Milik that plays. I think he plays in Serie A also. So they have some names. So it's not just that.
Yeah,
it's
they
not
have some
just
names.
Lewandowski alone.
And if you dig through, you'll see a bunch of guys who play in Germany or have played in Germany on their team. So there's these guys are experienced. They're not kind of first time around kind of guys. These are good players. With some experience in some good leagues. So I think they could come with, and they're gonna come organized, and play as a unit.
Right.
And
Mexico is the other team in that group that I think can challenge. I'm not writing them off, but the problem Mexico's been having is that with Tata Martino, the coach, there's just not been a lot of belief in them and the results they've had in friendly matches all year long, and also they've been losing to the U.S. twice in the Gold Cup and another CONCACAF tournament they have, League of Nations or whatnot. They just don't look like the same Mexico, And even some of the guys that are relying, I think one of their main strikers is injured, and also Jimenez is just barely coming back. Raul Jimenez plays for Wolves, so he actually got named to the squad, even though he hasn't really played since the end of August. I think early September is when he got hurt. So just a lot of question marks. Lots of question marks. But I think you and I both agree on Argentina and Poland. So, yeah, that's Group C for us.
No, 100%. And then Group D, we have Denmark, Tunisia, France, and Australia. Interesting group. Yeah, but go ahead.
Look, so my surprise team of this tournament is Denmark. I think Denmark I actually predict that Denmark will make a run all the way to the semifinals. And I'm not saying this because this cuddly team and that Christian. No, this team is solid. This team is solid.
Me too.
In fact, I see them top in this group, and France coming in second. Australia, and the less we say about Tunisia, the better. But then again, as I said, football, they end up surprising me. Let me just say, Tunisia always takes up a spot in Africa. They always qualify. They know how to qualify from Africa, but then they just lay eggs all over the place.
And it's the North African teams, my brother. It's not just Tunisia. And I'm not stereotyping North African teams. I'm just stating simple fact. All of them, when they go to the
I
World
disagree.
Cup.
Algeria has made a mark. Morocco has made a mark.
Algeria hasn't. Algeria qualified a long time ago. Maybe 1982.
Algeria has been to the second round in '86. Their first time to qualify was '82. And they actually had a pretty decent World Cup.
They had a pretty decent World Cup in '82. But they had a good team in '82.
For '86, I think they made it to the next round. I beg your pardon. That was Morocco that made it to the next round in '86. And Algeria has been to the second round in 2014, where they played Germany all the way to, I believe, it was extra time.
In 2014 in Brazil?
In Brazil, Algeria was in, and they were the best African team in 2014, without a doubt. They put 5 goals I can't remember the name of the country. They scored 5 goals against. Yeah, check it. But Algeria has done okay in the World Cup, over the time. They have claim to having made it the second round. Morocco has made it the second round. They've had some great results. In fact,
but for the most part, because you're gonna have, ever since we started getting 5 teams, right? Which was pretty much 2010. You have a couple of North African teams that come in, and historically they haven't done as well as Sub-Saharan African teams.
Well, let's be realistic. It's the same with all Africa. It's not just only Nigeria made it to the second round multiple times. Nigeria and Ghana, the only two African, I think, and other than Algeria, the only African countries that made it to the second round multiple times. So when we look at these countries that we always like, oh, Cameroon made it to the quarterfinals. That's the only time they made it past the group stage. Senegal, that's the only time they made it past the group stage. So in general, African teams,
Ghana made the quarterfinals as well. Huh? Ghana made the quarterfinals as well.
Right.
So you have those three teams.
They've been there twice. So apart from Ghana making it twice to the knockout stage, and Nigeria making it 3 times out of their 6 appearances to the knockout stage, all African countries pretty much on par with whatever the North Africans are doing. So it's not that the North Africans are any worse than the West Africans. It's just that Tunisia in particular lays an egg. They've never made it to the knockout stage. They've been to the World Cup many times. Morocco has been to the knockout stage. Algeria has been
but how many times has Morocco been to the knockout stage? Once, right?
Morocco's been there once.
Just once.
Yeah, but Cameroon has been to the World Cup 7 times. Has only been to the knockout stage once also. So I mean, if you want to compare it, it's relatively the same. There's 2 outliers. It's Nigeria and Ghana that are the outliers. African teams don't do well in the World Cup, period.
Correct. They don't, but when you look at so you look at African teams, most of the teams that have done the best in Africa have been West African teams. And that's a fact.
Well, what do you mean by the best? What's the best?
Like they have performed historically multiple second rounds, quarterfinals.
Only two teams have made multiple second rounds. Nigeria and
Ghana, yeah.
That's it.
And the only teams that have made the quarterfinals are all West African teams as well. Cameroon, Ghana, Senegal.
West Africa, only Senegal.
Yeah, Cameroon. People say Central Africa, but it's really West African.
Okay.
So you really have those 3, and then that's it. Those have been the most successful teams.
But you're talking about 3 quarterfinal appearances and all the World Cups we've been to. That's not enough for you.
But keep in mind, Cameroon's quarterfinal appearance in 1990. Was the grounds through which FIFA said, you know what, fine, we're going to give them more spots because Cameroon went out in that World Cup.
But since then, what have they done? Do you know how many victories? Do you know how many victories Cameroon has since?
But that's my thing with Cameroon, right? I love the Cameroonian teams. Like yeah, I know what you're saying.
I want to answer, and I need the answer to this question: how many victories does Cameroon have in the World Cup since 1990? Granted, they've been to every World Cup bar 2. Since 1990.
I have to look at the stats. I don't know, but what I will say is they haven't done well. They haven't done well. Cameroon hasn't done well.
They've had 2 victories, not even at most 3 victories in the World Cup since 1993.
Yeah, Cameroon hasn't done well.
We can't say Cameroon does well because they don't. They have
historically
performance.
Consistency.
They had their first appearance in 1982 where they drew all their matches. That was a good performance because it was their first time. And then they had the next performance in 1990 where they did probably, in my opinion, the best that any African country has ever done.
They almost made the semifinal.
Almost doesn't count. They only
but I mean, you can say the same
thing. It's a
great
performance.
Ghana almost made the
semifinal. We cannot say that
but
Cameroon is a good
the extent to which they did well is the point I'm trying to make. Like they performed so well in terms of how they played. Wait a second.
2014 did almost as well. If you want to use that.
But let me ask you this though. But let me ask you this: outside of Algeria,
they scored 5 goals in one game, which is still the most number of goals that one African team has ever.
But outside of Algeria,
okay,
Tunisia.
My argument here is that Tunisia is the one North African team that lays an egg. The other teams they do basically on par with what every other African
Morocco's
team
only
does.
done well once. That's it.
Cameroon has only done well once. Ghana
Morocco.
has done well twice.
We'll get to Morocco's group.
Ivory Coast. How many times have they been to the World Cup? What have they done?
Cote d'Ivoire.
You know what I'm saying?
We didn't bring up Cote d'Ivoire in this.
But I'm saying like, when we talk about African
when we
teams,
talk about the most successful teams out of the continent, they come from one region, right? And when we compare it, most of the time, like if you look at this particular list of teams that qualified, right? 3 of them are from North Africa. And you said it yourself. a lot of North African teams know how to qualify out of Africa, which is fine. So they figure out they qualify, but then once they get to the world stage, it's the performance is just, it's almost like you're watching a different team. It's almost like they're not the same team you're watching.
But I think
it's very frustrating because they seem to get up and have this additional confidence when they play sub-Saharan African teams, but they get to the World Cup and they seem intimidated by the bright lights. They can't perform.
Yeah, because the style of play can beat the cry style that the sub-Saharan teams have, and also they use intimidation too sometimes. But the style's not, they play a European style of game, but when they play against European and South American teams, those guys can play that game better. But let's move on from this. Now, I'm just going to say this. My argument is that the North African teams aren't doing any worse than what the rest of the African teams that go to the World Cup do. And that's why I'm including Cote d'Ivoire. If you're only going to talk about the best teams from West Africa, then that's not fair. We got to look at all African teams in general. How do they normally do when they go to the World Cup? And when you look at those teams, there's only the two outliers are Nigeria and Ghana. And Ghana is even more of an outlier because they've only been to the World Cup 3 times. And in those 3 times, twice, they've made the knockout stage. Once they've qualified for the quarterfinals. The other time they qualified for the semi. Actually, the other time they qualified for they almost made the semifinals. The other time they made it in the second round and lost to Brazil and then lost to Uruguay. And so by no small, they shouldn't feel ashamed. But those are outliers. But when most African teams go to the World Cup, generally speaking, they don't perform well. It's just simple as that. Whether North African, South African, East, whatever. Tunisia in particular, for all the opportunities that they've had, they've been the one that laid the eggs. Every other team has at least done something when they've been there. They can point to one moment that they've had in the World Cup. Whether it's Algeria beating Germany in 1982 2-1, or just laid out their 2014 performance where they scored 5 goals in one game, which remains the most number of goals an African team has scored, made it to the knockout rounds in 2014 and took the world champions to overtime before they succumbed. And Morocco, they have many of victories. They had a 3-0 victory in 1986 World Cup against Belgium. They made it to the knockout stage in 1986. And they have victories. They beat Scotland in 1998 3-0. So they have solid victories. They can point to those. Nigeria, we can point to our victories over Bulgaria. We've been in the second round. We beat Spain. Ghana can do their thing. Cameroon can say their thing. But when you look at overall behavior of the overall records, it's nothing to write home about in the World Cup.
No.
Teams. Generally speaking, Tunisia just has nothing they can say. There's no one moment in Tunisia's history you can be, everybody else that goes has that moment. At least
and the point is not whether African teams have done exceptionally well. The point is North African teams tend to have this additional oomph when they play in Africa, but when they go outside of Africa for world tournaments, they're terrible. And when you compare that, even Cote d'Ivoire, if you want to say, look, let's talk about Cote d'Ivoire in 2006 World Cup. Yeah, they didn't qualify. But when you watch the level at which they competed, they weren't intimidated by the bright lights. They came out to play. I promise you, watch Tunisia in this group. You look and say, how in the hell? But they qualified. Who did they beat to qualify? Was it Mali? They played Mali, right?
Were you talking about Tunisia?
Yeah.
Tunisia beat Mali. Mali also laid eggs. They probably should.
Yeah, Mali. I don't even know how Mali got there, to be honest with you. But I think, I agree with you in this group. Denmark, 100%. I've watched this team very well and closely for last.
And if there were better teams in this group, I wouldn't even fancy France either, even with all their talent. But because they're kind of disjointed right now, and there's also this curse of the team that wins the World Cup previously.
World Cup, yeah.
But I think Denmark and France.
Definitely Denmark and France.
I would like to see Tunisia and Australia and see how that match plays. I want to tell you that Tunisia should win, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Tunisians leave with only 1 point from this group or 0.
You know what? A Tunisian will listen to this conversation we're having right now and say, what the hell are they talking about? We beat them in AFCON.
Well, we're not talking about AFCON. So
but I'm saying, you know what I mean? Anyone that listens is like, we beat you guys. So,
we're not here, so it doesn't say much.
Yeah, it doesn't say much. We're not talking about us
today's
right
performance. We suck. What are your picks for that group?
France and Denmark, 100%.
So France
I
number
think
one or Denmark number one?
I'll go with France number one, man. There's
Okay.
too many killers on that team, man. I mean, yeah, they're disjointed, but if they just show up and play, all they have to do is just show up and play. Mbappe, and listen, if they show up and play, they're gonna win that group. I can see them beating France. I mean, beating Denmark, or at least getting a draw and just scoring.
I think Denmark's going to beat France, or at minimum a draw. I don't see France will not beat Denmark. That's my prediction of the group stages.
Really?
All right. What do you think about Group E?
Group E: Germany, Japan, Belgium. I'm sorry, Germany, Japan, and Spain, Croatia. Yeah, I think that's a good group. Definitely Germany and Spain, no question about that. Qualifying, the Germans have a chip on their shoulder. They have something to prove. They have a lot of really good young talent. They have a combination of pace and skill on their team. They'll be hard to beat, I promise you. And then Spain is Spain. They're stacked. Just the confidence they have alone. Costa Rica is not beating Spain. That I can tell you. And I don't see Japan beating them either. So those two.
Yeah. So when I was looking at this group, man, obviously it's top heavy with Germany and Spain. You would expect that Germany and Spain to come out. So it's just a matter of who you want to put first and put second. I took Spain in first place and Germany in second place, but I had to think about it quickly. I really wanted to give Japan some love, but the Japan is lacking in firepower up front. This is the generation. There's like a generation lull in the strikers. They have a couple of good players playing in the Bundesliga and in Liga, but just not enough. They just don't have enough firepower. Costa Rica also, just having watched them in CONCACAF, they're there to make up the numbers, quite frankly. Keylor Navas, obviously, they still rely on what's his name again? I forget his name, but Ruiz as still a player in this team, and those guys are old. So I just don't see it. I don't see it working out for them in this particular World Cup. But they've had a good run, and this would be like the swan song, just to, go into retirement. So again, this is going to be. I picked Spain number one and Germany number two in this particular group.
Yeah, no, I'm the reverse. I think Germany comes out on top, and Spain is number two. But I think, those two guys those are powerhouses. They'll run over these other two guys, the two countries without a problem. Group F, we have Morocco, Croatia, Belgium, and Canada.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you go ahead. I'll hear what's
in this particular group. Here's what I have. So obviously, everyone's going to look at this and say Belgium. Belgium was in the same group as Morocco in the last World Cup too. So just a repeat of that group. And that same group was with England. Then I remember it was England, Morocco, Belgium, and somebody else. I think it was one of the CONCACAF teams that England put like 21,000 goals against. I remember that game. But Belgium obviously is number one in this group. This Belgian team is not quite as, now there's talent, but it's not the same level as they had at the last World Cup and the last Euro 2016, where everyone was pipping them to like be the team. I don't see them going too far in this World Cup, but I see them being good enough to win this group.
Yeah.
And now second place is a toss-up. So Canada is a team that one shouldn't sleep on, but again, I would tell you that the inexperience at this level is going to come back and bite them. They're just not going to. They just don't have that experience matters a lot when the spotlight's on you. They've never had the glare and
lights come on, man. When the lights come on, it makes
it's different. I'm picking Morocco. Morocco has they have some world beaters on their team. Hakim Ziyech is on there. They have some Bono, the goalkeeper, plays for Sevilla, although they're not having the best season right now. But is still solid. Even their forward line. And the interplay is always really just beautiful to watch, man, if they get it right. Croatia is relying on some old veterans, although they're quite the quality also. One can never, ever sleep on the Croatians and any team from that region of the world. But I just look at Morocco, maybe a little hungrier, maybe the Arab nation being close to home, that little extra oomph. And then, they're quite passionate. So I think Belgium won and Morocco 2 in this group.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Wow. Nah, man. Croatia's gonna qualify. You know.
Wow, that was very dismissive.
Nah, Croatia. It's funny. One night we're talking about Canada. And listen, listen.
Canada has no chance. I'm sorry.
I love the Canadians.
The national anthem.
I love the Canadians, eh?
For three times during the World Cup.
Look, yeah, it's just the thing with Canada is, they came out on top in CONCACAF, right? They qualified top of CONCACAF, so ahead of United States and Mexico.
What's that meme? I don't care. that's
no, but
that emoji I meant to say I don't care.
Yeah, but they showed a lot. They showed a lot
Mexico
of grit.
and the United States. We just talked about them. We know that they're in a downswing. So Canada. I mean, look. Let's give credit where credit is due. Sure, they came out on top in CONCACAF. You clap for them. But honestly, that's the height of their achievement, in my opinion. Like, my opinion.
No, but I think what they did there was good in qualifying out of CONCACAF, like the way they did. Part of the reason why they did it, though, is they would play games against Costa Rica or Honduras, and they'll go play in Alberta, where the temperature is like when it's super cold, and those guys just come and freeze and they'll beat them. But still, good team, good going forward. Defense, I don't see how they keep Belgium or Croatia out of their nets.
Or Morocco.
I think they can keep Morocco out. I do. I really do. Look, Morocco didn't impress me in all the games I saw in Africa. They just didn't. But I think but Belgium is too much firepower. Same thing with Croatia. Croatia is a hell of a team. I mean, the thing is, they're a little older, but these guys are still playing for top clubs across Europe, and they start every game. So they play a lot. These are solid players across the board.
Well, here's where I think
my prediction is Croatia comes out on top, Belgium is second.
So I think that's interesting. So this is maybe the first time that we've come up with where the team that I don't have even qualifying, you putting them in first place. Here's the thing I look at in this tournament. One of the big issues with this tournament right now is a number of injuries, injured stars, injured players are coming in, and clearly one of the big reasons for that is just the sheer number of games that have been played prior to the World Cup, just to fit this World Cup into the winter schedule. And when you now have old players like this, those are the ones that get affected the most by that, So what I see is either you're going to be more tied legs, or from Croatia, or more likelihood you're going to get guys get injured. One guy I do want to point out for Croatia is Ilicic. That boy is playing something different for Atalanta in Italy. He's a star in the making. You're still relying on Modric. Modric is 39,000 years old, however old he is. Even in Real Madrid,
still started for Real.
His minutes in Real Madrid.
Yeah, you got to manage him. Though. You have to manage him.
You got to play every 3 days. That's bro.
But see, they can still manage him in this World Cup.
Just not if they need to win to qualify for that. So I just think Morocco, they're younger guys, they're hungrier, they have more aggression. I don't know. We'll see. You might be right. I might be wrong. I might be right. You might be wrong. The whole thing here is we're predicted anyway, so no one really knows. One of the things people are going to get injured. It's going to change the dynamic of things.
Yeah. The only thing with Morocco is they're hard pump Kool-Aid, man. They're not they're not going to go out there and fight. I'm telling you, man. You see. But So let's go to the next group. That group G: Switzerland, Cameroon, Brazil, and Serbia.
I already know who you're going to pick out of this group anyway, but let me
but this is a good group, though. I like this group.
I think of all the groups,
this is a hard group for me to pick. I won't lie to you.
This one is hard.
This is a hard group.
The other group, the other group I said is the most balanced group, the one with the United States and England. I think that was the most balanced, just in terms of nobody is like supremely superior to anybody in that group.
Yeah.
But then I think once you start getting the group G and group H, I think group H for me is the group of death, but group G is the next one. I think clearly Brazil, I think you and I will probably, anybody who's blind will pick Brazil as the champions of this group. But I think all 3 teams here have a chance to be second. All of them. Nobody's looking at the other guy and saying we have to do something special to come. They're just looking at, okay, look, let's get something from the Brazil game and not lose by too much, and then we'll tackle you other guys.
Yeah.
But I think honestly, here's where I think the advantage is. Whoever plays Brazil last may have the advantage because
they've already qualified.
Brazil might have already qualified and now may not play the best squad to rest guys. And that game might be signed. The other two teams are playing each other. And I think they will come down to that. And guess who plays Brazil last in this group? You probably guessed it. Cameroon.
Wow.
So they may have the advantage, although I don't fancy them. I don't.
Listen,
I know you like them. I know you.
Listen. I have this. I don't know where it comes from. I just have this love of the Cameroonian team. I think he came from Roger. I think he came from Roger Miller. I think he came from Makanaki.
Yes, you know how many? That's 32 years ago.
I know, but the love didn't die. You have to understand, like
that's 32 years ago.
Like, and it's weird because we share a border with them.
Saudi Arabia once.
Yes, but you have to understand, right? We share a border with these guys.
Chile, maybe.
When we play them, they are our rivals. But I've always loved the Cameroonian team. You don't understand, like. When you look at Samuel Eto'o, God, I mean, how can you not love that guy? When you look at, I've just always been a fan of Cameroon, right? In terms of their football, Boma, Rigobert Song. I mean, the list goes on and on. And the way they qualified was a thing of beauty. I mean, I just love. They went to Algeria and did the impossible in a tough, hard game. That this team has grit. I promise you. This team has character. They have grit. They know how to fight. They have Eto'o is the head of their federation right now. Rigobert Song is the coach. These guys are motivated. I promise you. And then they have my boy that plays for Napoli.
Anguissa.
I love that. He's a killer.
Is the key to listen. Now the problem with Anguissa and Cameroon is that look, Anguissa is being asked to be the creative midfielder in Cameroon. Their defense is not very good. Anguissa is being asked to be the creative midfielder. There's no, in order for that to succeed, they need somebody to balance it out, and they don't really have any other midfielders to stand in front of the defense.
And then up front, they have Choupo-Moting.
This
is a solid team, bro. I swear to you, man.
It's a solid team.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's not really that solid. It's really not. It's really not. The goalkeeper is good. The defense sucks. One of their midfielders, a defensive midfielder, he's really good, but they ask him to play as an attacking midfielder. You see what I'm saying? And Choupo-Moting, as good as he is, he's good. Choupo-Moting has not ever been that good. Now he's in a patch of a form of his life. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though. He starts for Bayern Munich, and that's my point, though, right? He starts for Bayern. He's a savage. He's always been good. He's not going to get
the same. Look, if you and I play for this Bayern team, man, our names would be in the headlines too. We'll be scoring goals.
No, but see, the thing is, Choupo-Moting has been good for a long time. Yeah,
Choupo-Moting has not been good for a long time, bro.
He has. He's one of those players where I remember watching him years ago.
Now, I'm not saying he sucks. He doesn't suck.
Yeah. He's on a different.
The best run he's had.
100%. He's on a different level now. But he's always been a good player in all the teams he's played for. I mean, I haven't really seen him suck it up. I think now he's coming into a different form, and he's in top form. And Anguissa, I watched him at Fulham. Now I'm watching him at Napoli. Phenomenal player. And then you have this other kid. I forgot his name. He was a phenom in AFCON as well. They have some really good, and then you have I don't know if he's going to play again. The forward that played in AFCON,
Abubakar.
But he did his thing in AFCON. So they have the motivation, and I think finally with Eto'o at the helm at the federation, they've cut out a lot of the excess nonsense that was there before, and you can see it in the football.
Really though. I don't know if you've really been following Cameroon. It's not when the World Cup squad call up, they called up a bunch of guys that don't play regularly in their clubs. Some guys that are going to come in and just make their debut for Cameroon. So it's a lot. There's a lot of noise in the background with the Cameroonian team. Again, it remains to be seen. Maybe they'll pay the bonuses on time.
No.
But if I look at the other teams in this group, because we focus all on Cameroon, but we need to talk about the other teams. Serbia is a team I look at as a team that will come out of this group, but it's dependent on one main thing. If Mitrovic is healthy, Mitrovic has gotten hurt over the last couple of weeks with a foot injury.
Mitrovic.
And he's been in the form of his life, too, in the Premier League for Fulham. If he's healthy to play, Serbia comes out second in this group. Switzerland, I don't really count. Now, Switzerland's one of those countries that they do the bare minimum to show up and maybe qualify, but they never do anything extra outside of that. But they always find a way to make it to the second round. So
they have a good team.
They have a good pedigree in the World Cup than Cameroon does. Point blank. I will pick them over Cameroon, even though Cameroon will probably look at them as a game they can win. But Serbia is not losing to Cameroon, I can tell you that right now.
The only reason why anyone should be reluctant to pick Cameroon is because of their inconsistency. And even for me, I'm a Cameroon fan. Like, I've always loved Cameroonian teams. But I do understand that you never know which Cameroon you're going to get. And that's always been the challenge for me.
Well, I mean, if you look since 1990, you know exactly which Cameroon you're going to get.
Remember when they played the Confederation Cup and they lost to Brazil in the final?
Yeah,
remember that Confederation when what's his name passed away? No, I'm just saying, like, you know,
they actually lost to France. They actually beat Brazil in that.
Marc-Vivien Foe, rest in peace. You know, when he passed away, but Cameroon, you know, if they show up and they build confidence, they're a tough team to beat, man. I swear to you. But I think, you know, they're one of those guys where, you know, I look at this group and look, if I was to bet money, I may not put my money on them, but I wouldn't be surprised if they qualify as well.
So because I don't know what the status of Mitrovic is, this is conditional. I'm going to go with Switzerland. Brazil and Switzerland out of this group. But if Mitrovic is healthy, then it'll be Brazil and Serbia.
You pick the Swiss over the Serbs?
Yeah, if Mitrovic is healthy, Serbia to go. If Mitrovic is not healthy, Switzerland to go in Brazil.
We'll see. Anyway, that's a tough group. Clearly, I have Brazil as number one. I think number two is wide open. It could be any one of those teams, in my opinion. Serbs, that's another country where I like their players. A lot of them have played for Chelsea. Maybe that's why. But I like Serbian players as well. So it's one of those things. But I know Brazil is number one. And we'll kind of see how number two plays out.
Well, speaking of Brazil, just want to talk about Brazil a little bit. Look at the embarrassment of riches Brazil has, where a guy like Roberto Firmino can't even make the World Cup squad. That is quite amazing, you know. The forward line of Neymar. I think they replaced. I think they took Richarlison from Tottenham Hotspurs in place of Firmino. And quite frankly, Richarlison has been producing the goods in the last year. He scored a ton of goals for Brazil in friendlies and tournaments. They just have an embarrassment of riches, man. Vinicius Junior, Rafinha.
That's my dude, Vinicius, man.
Yeah, I mean, but it's Brazil. Brazil, like, automatically, everyone's gonna put them in the semifinals regardless. You know, in their brackets, and it's always a surprise when they don't make it. But they have a pretty solid spine, too, with guys like Casemiro over there. The defenders are pretty solid.
They're my favorite to win.
The goalkeepers are clearly some of the
goalkeepers
in the world.
Yeah. I think they win it, man. That's my opinion, though. But we'll see.
Okay. Well,
I think they do.
I think this is a teaser for when we do our knockout round special. But who will say we should win? But you say Brazil. I say stay tuned for who I'm really, really picking. All right. So again, who are you picking again? So I didn't get your picks for this group. I'm saying Brazil and Serbia with Mitrovic, Switzerland without Mitrovic for Serbia.
I'll go Brazil, and I don't know. Anyone could say what they want, but I'm riding with my guys. Cameroon, baby.
Before we even started,
I'm riding with my Lions. Okay. Yeah. All right. Group H. Portugal, the Black Stars.
Group of death.
Uruguay and South Korea.
Group of death.
So it's gonna be fun, man.
Group of death.
Portugal. Oh, you saw they decimated us today, so that's fun. Getting ready to play Ghana. I'm probably confident that they could beat Ghana. I think they will beat Ghana. Ghana is not a team that should be at the World Cup, in my opinion. And this isn't because they beat us. I just don't think they have the goods or the squad. It's not the same Ghanaian team that almost made it to the quarterfinals. Definitely not. So, but go ahead. I'll let you kind of ride on.
So this group, like I've been screaming, is the group of death to me. Because I think, for one, I rate Portugal very highly. I think Portugal also one of the tournament favorites. Favorites for this tournament in my book. In addition to Brazil, to me, I have three teams that I look at. It's Argentina, Brazil, and Portugal. Those are the three main countries that I look at that really legitimately have a chance to win this World Cup. Ghana might be the team that's a whipping boy of this group. The only thing I would say about Ghana is Ghana in international football, especially when they leave the continent, they're a different beast compared to how they play in Africa. And they know how to they just know how to play against these big teams in the world when the lights come on. The only problem is a lot of these guys haven't had the light shine on them like that. But they have enough guile and experience mixed with the Ayew brothers and a bunch of other guys. Their squad is interesting. Nothing to write home about.
Partey.
Yeah, Partey. That's a big man in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's tough for me to see them really getting anything out of this group, but it really comes down to Uruguay and South Korea. And for me, I think Uruguay they're just old. And the young guys just haven't stepped up to the mark yet. The old guys, who they're relying on in Cavani,
Suarez,
Diego Godin, those guys are plus 35 plus.
Yeah.
And even the goalkeeper Muslera, he's 36. It's tough, man. It's tough to every 3 days to be relying on those guys as your main men. They do have Darwin Núñez, who is a good able striker. And a couple other guys that play in La Liga and all kinds of other leagues. But for me, again, this is one of those injury things, but it looks like Heung-min Son is going to be healthy for the World Cup. I wonder if he'll be fit, but he'll be healthy. I like South Korea coming out of this group in second place. They also have Hwang.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. Hwang Cha Hwang. That, he's a pretty solid. He used to play in Bordeaux in France, but actually I think he's in the Bundesliga now. I forget what, but he's been getting some very meaningful playing time and doing well. But I watched them in qualifying a lot, and they have a solid team, and they get goals from the back too. The defender that plays for Napoli that just started playing for Napoli this year has been a revelation. He basically replaced Koulibaly without any drop off. Some might even think he's better. Yeah, so that's a solid squad. It's relatively unknown because some people are not going to know much about them with most of their squad playing their trades in Asia. But they always have that solidity because they play together. They play unselfish ball, and it's highlighted by their captain, one of the most unselfish superstars in Heung-min Son. If Song is healthy, they will beat Uruguay. They will beat Ghana. They may fall to Portugal. It might tie Portugal, but they'll come out second in this group. So Portugal and South Korea.
It's not a bad prediction. Listen, I think you made a lot of really good points. I've seen South Korea. They're very, very, when they play together, you're right, 100%. And Son is a savage. So I think Uruguay, man, a lot of experience up front. They play a very good defensive football. If you watch them, they let you have the ball, and they try to defend very well. And when they get the ball from you, they find Suarez. They find guys that could finish, and that's always been their tactic, and they've been good at it. They do it very well. Problem is the point you made. These guys are not what they were. They have the confidence because they've played under this kind of environment before. They know how to do it, but can they do it consistently for 90 minutes?
I even predict that. I think if Ghana is going to get a victory in this World Cup, it'll probably come against Uruguay for a couple of reasons. One, usually when you see teams with aging stars in the fourth world, they usually end up not performing well in the World Cup. They go out in a blaze of disappointment. And then one must not forget that Ghana has a chip on their shoulder against Uruguay stemming from that 2010 match where Suarez handled the ball to prevent them from scoring a goal that would have gotten them into the semifinal, and of course, got red carded, and subsequently Samoa John missed the penalty. How did he miss that penalty, by the way? It's still like baffling to me, man. Like, you have this is African history in your hand, and you fluff your lines.
Bro, it was a perfectly taken penalty. Keeper went the wrong way, hit the crossbar.
Well, why are you shooting the penalty high like that? That's not penalty. What kind of technique? It's
to me, don't remind me.
Like, usually they say, "Oh, you missed the penalty," but I think when a goalie saves a penalty, I shouldn't count that as a missed penalty. That's a goalie saved the penalty. But you miss is when you don't even hit the frame of the goal. You freaking hit
hit the crossbar.
Hit the crossbar wide from 12 yards out as a professional. And such a big moment, man. They say sometimes that's what they say, that pressure, man. You never know.
Bust pipes, man. The lights come on, it's different. But he played such a phenomenal game too, man. It's just unfortunate because that may be one of the best international games that Gian has ever played. He was fantastic the entire game. Just that penalty, man. He just hit the crossbar. It was bad luck. There's no
2010 John was peak Samoa Gyan. Even in AFCON that year, he was
fantastic.
Nigeria, he scored.
He was fantastic.
3 or 4 goals in AFCON, and
he was fantastic.
And then the World Cup against the USA, got the game winner. Yeah, he scored the game winner against the USA.
Yeah.
Boateng scored the first goal before Donovan
equalized. KPB was also a savage in that World Cup.
That 2010 Ghana team, man, they were fun to watch. They were very fun to watch.
Beautiful team to watch.
They carried the hopes of all of Africa, but
that penalty, you don't understand. I had nightmares after that. I couldn't sleep. You know how you wake up and you're like, God, how did he miss that? That's the first thing that comes to your head, man. But yeah, Suarez, I still don't like Suarez still today because of that.
Well, he did what he was supposed to.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Uruguayans love him, but for
it's
some,
not even about Uruguay. If the shoe was on the other foot, you would do the same thing. He did exactly what he was supposed to do.
Standing there, the ball was going in.
He fell on his sword for the team. He took one for the team. So that's why he's a hero. And by the way, Suarez went back home to play professional football this year. He played for Nacional in Uruguay, and in fact, helped them win the league just a couple of weeks ago. And the rumor is that he's actually going to be coming to MLS, which tells you that Suarez is done. Because once you start traveling from Europe back to South America, back up to North America, you're like literally saying, this is my retirement journey. Because after North America, there's only one more thing to do.
But that's why I want Ghana to beat them, right? So if there's a game that Ghana needs to win, that's it.
I think that's their victory. I think that's what Ghana gets their victory. And again, I always look at these things as, when do you play these teams, right? And unfortunately, Ghana plays them in the last game. If this were maybe the second game after Ghana played Portugal, and then they have to now play South Korea for the deciding who qualifies in the group, I see it, but I don't see that happening. Again, South Korea plays Uruguay to start, so obviously I think South Korea can get that victory. Then they play Ghana next, which I think South Korea is going to beat Ghana. And if they get those 2 victories, then the last game against Portugal for them is just a dead rubber. They know they'll be in more than likely. So, yeah. Who you play at the last games matter, man.
No, it does. It depends on how the qualification series have gone. If it's kind of worked itself out, it all depends on how it's played out, man. But it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, man. Hey, starts in a couple of days, fun times. Looking forward to it. We're gonna come back and do the knockout stages, and you find out all my predictions came through. That'll be fun.
Hey, what they say, we shall see. So basically, I think the knockout stages are going to begin sometime around December 3rd or 4th or something like that.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's gonna be fun, man. It's gonna be a fun World Cup. It's better. This World Cup is better watching far away than being in a desert. All due respect to Qatar, being in a desert.
Well, one thing that
you know what I mean, but
there was a comment by the captain of the French national team, Hugo Lloris.
Mm-hmm.
He said, He wasn't gonna wear. He was considering not wearing the LGBTQ captain's
Band?
armband because his statement was, when foreigners come to France, we expect them to follow our laws and abide by them. So why is it hard for us to understand that we need to follow and abide by the laws of Qatar?
Makes sense.
So I'm gonna leave that one as that.
My man. Nice one, man.
Yes,
Hey.
sir.
Yes, sir. Thanks for coming on. We'll do the middle one during this tournament, and then kind of do some recap and evaluate what's been going on so far. It's gonna be a fun tournament, man.
I think so too. I think once the football starts, we'll focus on the football. The only thing I haven't liked about this build up to this World Cup is the focus has not been on the football at all. It's been on all the extracurricular stuff. And I think one of your previous guests, Mike Fitzer, was mentioning something like this, where a lot of it, there are some valid points to be made about certain morality issues surrounding Qatar, but a lot of it has to do with Western arrogance, trying to impose their own way of thinking into the way other countries should. But one can't ignore the fact that the speculations of how Qatar got the World Cup, was shrouded in a lot of accusations of bribery and stuff like that. But really, that part, and then the number of migrant worker deaths, and all that kind of stuff, I guess we can't ignore it. But talking about them not being able to serve beer and human rights and not being open to other people's way of living, hey, it's neither here nor there for me. I'm more focused on the quality of play, and if there's anything that I personally had an issue with, other than maybe some moral issues, which I'm not going to bring up here, personally, is just the fact that because of the conditions of the country at this time of the year, the weather, we had to move the World Cup from summer to winter, and that really has spoiled some of the fun in that seen so many injuries because we had to fit so many matches into the schedule, and players just fatigued, tired, injured. And I fear that injury, even though we sat here and predicted all these nice predictions, but injury is going to rear its ugly head up and be the main decider of who the tournament champions are. So ultimately, it's going to be the deepest teams that probably will end up winning this tournament, the ones that can survive and thrive.
Or the youngest with the most talent, right? It's a valid point because fatigue, like you said, will also play a huge factor. Fatigue will play a very huge factor. But on that note, bro, thank you so much. I'll get this out. I'll chat with you some more, and we'll be back here to continue the World Cup.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Love you guys. Deuces.